Welcome aboard the Tabletop Express. My name is Chris.
I'm Anthony. It is the Polar Express temporarily for this video because what are we talking about?
We're talking about Holiday Hills. This is designed by Chris Porter, and I want to point out Chris has been on the channel. We did a Creators Corner with Chris, so you can check that out. We'll have a link for that in the description as well at the end of the video. I also want to point out that we've talked about this in our recap of PAX Unplugged because we played the very prototype version of this. The very prototype version.
Chris was working hard running multiple games with different prototype versions set up. I think at least 2 games were going on at one time. And it was a chaotic, festive, good time.
It was. And so we talked a little bit about it then. Anthony, you want to break some of the gameplay down a little bit for people with this one? This one, as we're talking about it, by the way, I just want to be very clear. It's coming to its final days on Kickstarter. We got our copy about 2 weeks ago. We had a chance to play. We have not got a chance to, we'll just put it there for all variations that have been added.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you look at the Kickstarter campaign, there's a lot going on just with Holiday Hills, and then a ton of additional stuff that we've had not a chance to get to yet.
Yeah, but let's break down the core gameplay, if you will, and talk a little bit about how Holiday Hills plays.
Yeah, so basically, you're with the other players. Not a cooperative game by any means, but everyone is sort of contributing to the holiday decorations in this game. The center area is basically, the town square, and players are going to be adding decorations to the trees in the town square, while also moving their sled around the border of the board. So one of the interesting things about the game is when you move your sled piece, you can technically move it as many spaces as you want, up to the corner of the board, because you have to stop at those 4. Because in essence, it is sort of a race of sorts, right? To get back to your starting position. That's what's going to trigger end game, and you'll get some points for doing that first. But along the way, there's these paths that you can take, lower one or bottom one, top or bottom. And that's going to allow you to gather presents, get decorations to add to the trees, deliver some presents at certain spots as well. And basically, the whole point of this is you're trying to obtain these objectives that are either about the decor or the presents. So they're very much spatial, right? Like having, X amount of your candy canes in this particular pattern or whatnot. But as the game progresses, the trees get, progressively more festive and crowded with decorations. You're going to add lights, candy canes, ornaments, all kinds of stuff, in addition to putting these little dice, which are presents, under the 4 corners of the spaces where the tree is to get points for objectives and at the end of the game as well.
Yeah, and I want to point out it's interesting because, yes, the dice have pips on them, standard 1 to 6 pips. And if you control a tree, you're going to get the highest scoring pip. But if there's 2 6s under a tree, well, the second highest is still going to get themselves some nice scoring. So you can be very strategic about that kind of area control aspect. The objectives, one of the modules actually adds it so the way lighting is configured can get you points. So they've added a lot of different ways in this to score points. But overall, the concept is simple. Moving down the path, taking the actions, the iconography is pretty clear. As you actually go through this game, just as an example, by the way, essentially your starting position is these 5 in the middle. This one has come down since, as you can see, a red tree next to that other red tree. But standard start is going to just be some trees in the middle of the board. So you're going to start with some, but ultimately what direction you go is up to you. From a gameplay perspective, it really is a fun experience to go around the board. It doesn't take too long, but you don't want to go too far because you want to pick up presents. And when you get to each of those corners, which you can see here, you're going to stop and you're going to take some actions, which includes dropping your dice off.
Right.
So dropping those dice off is a critical aspect, and you're only going to be able to place so many dice in the game. you've only got spots for 2 of them on your sled. So
Mhm.
keep that in mind, that you really need to be smart about what you're putting down. And that might relate to one of your objective cards, because your objective cards is a big way to score points. Anthony, you also mentioned, finishing first is going to get you points. We did a 3-player game, so first got 14, second got 6. But if you did a 4-player game, there's a card that would be showing that showed what a player who finished third would get.
Right, right.
But do you want to finish first is up to you, because it might not be as strategically, sound to do that based on what's happened on your board. And especially because with the dice underneath the tree, um, and let's face it, the trees only have 4 spots that you can connect. So when you're running, say, those ornaments, if someone fills up a spot and they can go to your tree,
Oh yeah.
you waiting a turn to place that ornament might be the reason you don't get to get that last ornament out that you need. So there's a lot of things happening in it. So for that reason, like I said, I'm saying a lot's going on, but ultimately the actions themselves are straightforward. There is a lot of strategy, however, in
Yeah,
place.
absolutely, absolutely. It combines a sort of abstract strategy, placement sort of game with a resource management kind of thing. Because how are you going to get that stuff? And so there is a lot going on, but it all really does work harmoniously together in this as a total package, I think.
I
Um,
agree.
then take it to the next step, component wise. I mean, overall, is a visually stunning game that just gets more colorful as the game progresses. This is the Christmas just explosion here on this board, and it looks fantastic. Um,
Yeah.
you
I,
know,
I
we
want to point out the components, they do look great. And I made the comment before we started recording, and I want to make sure I point out here is they take up a good amount of space on those trees. I don't know how much smaller you could make them,
yeah,
and it might have been nice if they were slightly smaller, but I wouldn't want them too much smaller because they look so good on the tree. So
yeah,
it's a challenging struggle, right? Like, what is the size of these pieces versus for placing them, but at the same time, visually, when you have that top down look that you've kind of seen a little bit, and we have more photos of that I'll make sure we share.
yeah,
But
yeah,
that was my largest struggle, and it wasn't a major struggle. Like, it's a very minor comment really in the end, because from the first time we played this to now, he made so many incredible changes in my view. In particular, you see those slots where the dice go, the
right,
board is larger than when we originally played it. He listened to the feedback very clearly. The board is larger. It's much easier to know what dice are underneath the trees no matter where I'm sitting. Now,
yeah.
I do have to stand up from time to time in this game and say, okay, wait a minute, let me just take a quick look.
Right, because the board just gets more crowded. I mean, more trees come up too, so there's line of sight is going to get a little dicey as you go on, but it's not hard to figure it out.
No. But that's going to be with this type of game, which is going to be both visually stunning, highly thematic, but at the same time, yes, you're going to have to stand up on occasion, right? Like, but I think it's important to point it out. But I think they did some great changes here in terms of the production, just to make it, again, that slight increase in board size. And I don't know what the difference was exactly, but you could tell it's a little bit bigger than when we originally played it.
Well, and also there wasn't the recessed spots for it either.
That's
That's a
true.
touch, right? Because now the dice are going to kind of hug in there and not really get knocked around because that was
That's
an
right,
issue
because they
too.
did get bounced around a little bit when we played the
Yeah,
prototype
and
version.
that's
So you're
important
right.
because you do want you have to know what the value is that's face up. So it was a big deal. But to your point before, and again, we can talk about how good of a guy Chris Porter is. But at PAX, we saw him in real time take feedback from some participants, some players, some demoers, and do it in a very constructive and personable and professional way that was it was cool for us to just kind of witness that without it being planned or whatever. So that was definitely cool. And yeah, I mean, the everything I want in a Christmas game is really here. And if it's not in the base game, it's with one of the other expansions or versions or modules you can add in, or again, check out the Kickstarter campaign, even if you do a late pledge, because there's other games here as well that you can really ramp up your holiday collection if that's your thing. Which
And
it is.
and one of the interesting things is, for example, we didn't get to dig into, we still intend to, and maybe we'll talk about on Call Aboard or something in the future. But we wanted to get a review out, and we wanted to talk about this before the Kickstarter ended. the naughty mode, I believe all the trees are out on the board right at the start.
Right.
So it changes the game immediately, right? And then he has some modular expansions in here that change that game. So I think that there's a lot of gameplay here, but even if you just have that core experience, you're going to have something that looks like this on your table at the holidays. And for me, I was looking at this from a gameplay perspective and all the standard ways I look at it, but also theme is incredibly important here. And this nails the theme. It truly nails the theme, which I don't feel like I've said all that often in the past 2 years. Like there haven't been too many that have wowed me on theme. This is the reason why we signed up for this at PAX Unplugged.
Sure.
And yes, I consider ourselves lucky that we've got to see it from the feedback phase to this, because the thing I want to point out is we saw those changes made.
Right.
And I think that I should say we didn't see all the changes made, right? Some feedback happens and it's not necessarily a good idea, or that doesn't get made, but the feedback that got made, like the recess in the board and things like that, it came to fruition, right?
Yep.
And so I think it's awesome to see those changes in real time, and the quality that we're also looking at in some of the things. This is not the final version. So I know, for example, the trees were maybe not the final version. So the trees are going to actually look better.
The trees in the final version, I think, have almost more of a dual tone, like a lighter green highlighted on some of the pieces.
Yeah. So overall, yeah, I mean, look, we played this game. This is when I talk about, by the way, that visual top down. Like this is what you're looking at.
Right. So to your point, you don't want those ornaments to be too much smaller, because it is really important that you do see them from this angle. Yes. And when you have, don't forget the stars and stuff, you don't want to sort of block some views.
That's why I mentioned it. That's why it's not as much as it's definitely not a complaint. It's more of a, I don't know what the right size is. You might knock them down on occasion, right? But it's not, to me, they're so, I like I said, they look so
it's
good.
Thematic. Christmas ornaments fall off the tree all the time.
That's true. Thematic, right? No, but it looks really visually stunning, but it is also needs to be clear, because I need to know, like, all right, for example, upper right, you'll see a tree that has an ornament connecting it. And so the one tree has, it's got the ornament that's red. I should say the decoration that's red, which is that longer piece. It's got a candy cane that's red and an ornament that's red, and then a yellow candy cane, which means if there were dice under that, which there are not, red would have got the first die and yellow would have got the second in terms of points. Yeah. So very easily to visually tell this. Now, from a color perspective, obviously, I can't attest for the color blindness part that could come into play with some of these, but it's the Christmas colors overall here with the red and the green and the blue. And so I don't want to try to assess because, but I can say I have some issues with blue and black sometimes. And this very clearly looked like blue to me. So I can assess it for that. I don't want to try to speak for anyone who has issues with the red or the yellows or the greens. But that said, yeah, that again, really enjoyed this game. And we final version of the board, as you can kind of see here, the way scoring can break down we have the pad there that you can start to see what some of our scores looked like. I did not win this game. I will say that much. Definitely did not. But it's an interesting game. It's got a race component. It's got a resource collection. It's strategically in terms of how far do I want to go. It did give me sort of almost that Parks. I guess Parks is sort of like where I'm choosing how far I can go.
Yeah. Like you might be giving up some spaces for something that you really want. Yeah, I get it.
But yeah, again, really enjoyed it. I have to imagine this is high on your holiday list at this point.
Yes, it really is. So this is definitely a holiday game that I will make a point to get out at least once a year. And for me, it's up there with, the other game that comes to mind in my collection is Santa's Workshop.
Yep.
Right. That is one of the most thematic Christmas themed games. And it's a nice, it's a gamer's game. It's a worker placement game. And it even has, two sides. You can make it a little more gamey or a little less, depending on the crowd. And so this is right up there with that, even though they are the theme is Christmas. The gameplay is completely different, right? So these two can coexist hands down. So for me, this is going to get every year. Man, I'm going to give it an 8.5.
Yeah,
for Holiday Hills.
I'm close on this one. I don't think I'm quite an 8.5. I like it better, I want to say, than Santa's Workshop, because Santa's Workshop, I think it might have been the most thematic of the holiday games in terms of that season that I've played until this one. So this defeats that. I like the gameplay of this one better, personally. The overall variety that has been added, I think, is exceptional. I'm going to say 8.2 on this one, but in playing the additional modes, it gives me that levity, I think, where this is going to bump up a bit. I really want to play that naughty side. I want to play with the module where we're also getting the cards for the way the deck, for the way the lights are strung.
Oh,
because
yeah,
I think that's an easy add-on that I think in retrospect, we should have just thrown in. I know, mind you, we had a first-time player and we chose to not do it. But that said, it's an 8.2 for me. It's a solid game. It is probably my favorite holiday game right now in terms of the realm of the winter season. And I really enjoyed it, and I want to play it more. So definitely can highly recommend this one. And like I said, for me, it visually on the table is going to make people excited for the final product, but the journey to get there is fun. And so it's not just something that looks nice. I feel like the journey to create that visual is worth it. And that's the greatest compliment that I can give to a game that looks good. But there's plenty of games that look good and I don't enjoy. So
for sure.
But that is our thoughts on Holiday Hills. Again, depending when you're watching this, it may or may not be on Kickstarter, of course, but we certainly want to thank Chris for giving us a chance to play the game, and again, multiple times, and to see the iterations as they've changed and gone. And I think the biggest thing is, it's if you have a chance to play test a game, I think this is a good opportunity to say this. If you have a chance to play test a game for a designer or a publisher, please jump at the opportunity and then go back and try to play that final product. See what they did. See what feedback they took. See what that final version looks like, because it's a really interesting journey. It's something that anyone can do. It's not like you have to have a YouTube channel or be a content creator or anything like that to do. Anyone can play test a game. There's always people looking for it. So get out there and have that experience, because again, this is one that I do want to be very transparent. Say we kind of saw a lot of the changes over time, and we were educated about the changes being made. So as we're talking about this game, we are talking solely about the gameplay and our experiences, but that experience of seeing it from the beginning, and not all the way in the beginning, right? But seeing from one significant version to another significant version has been very interesting. And I just think it's something everyone should experience, in my opinion, at least, especially like games. Go through that process. So you'll have a lot more respect for those publishers and designers too, and the time that they put into it. I will say, of course, I am going to have a link for it, as noted, to our conversation with Chris that we had. And I hope you'll check that out, where he talks about the game and the game design, which is part of what I'm talking about, where he did tell us some of the changes that were being made, and he talks about how he takes that process. With that, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please, if you did so and want to see more reviews and other content from us, including participating in our live call-in show, Call Aboard, definitely like and subscribe and all that jazz. But with that, my name is Chris. That is Anthony. And we want to thank you for coming aboard the Tabletop Express.